The Veloxi had never run from anything in their 3,000 years of galactic conquest. They were the fastest species in known space. Their ships could jump between stars in hours. Their bodies could survive forces that would turn other beings into paste. They had conquered 47 worlds and destroyed 12 civilizations. Running was something prey did, and the Veloxi were not prey. But that was before they met humanity. Admiral Crick stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Victory, and watched the blue planet burn on the main screen. The humans called it Earth. It had taken the Veloxi fleet 3 days to break through their primitive defenses. 3 days longer than expected, but still a victory. The human military had fought hard. They had thrown everything at the invaders. Nuclear weapons, kinetic strikes, even ramming their own ships into Veloxi cruisers in suicide attacks. It was impressive, in a sad sort of way. The humans had spirit, but spirit did not win wars against superior technology. "Admiral," said his second-in-command, a young officer named Threx, "the ground forces report that the major population centers are eliminated. Resistance is crumbling. The planet will be fully conquered within the week." Crix nodded. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of satisfaction among his people. "Good. Prepare to send the victory signal to the homeworld. Another species falls before the Veloxi Dominion." But something on the tactical display caught his attention. A small cluster of contacts was moving away from the planet. Human ships, maybe 50 of them, a mix of military vessels and civilian craft. They were running. "Those ships," Crick said, "destroy them." Threx checked his console. "They are out of weapons range, Admiral. They are heading for the outer system at maximum speed." "Then pursue them. I want no survivors." The Veloxi fleet turned and gave chase. It should have been simple. Veloxi ships were faster than anything humans had ever built. They would catch the fleeing vessels in hours, destroy them, and return to finish the conquest of Earth. That was what should have happened. But Commander Sarah Chen had other plans. She stood on the bridge of the UES Hope, the largest ship in the fleeing human fleet. It was not a warship. It was a colony vessel built to carry thousands of people across the stars to new homes. Now it carried the last hope of humanity. 30,000 civilians packed into its holds. Scientists, engineers, doctors, children, the seeds of a new beginning. Around the Hope flew the remains of Earth's space navy. 42 warships, most of them damaged from the battle. They had fuel for maybe 6 months of constant running. After that, they would be dead in space. Chen looked at the tactical display. The Veloxi fleet was following them. 120 warships, including that massive flagship. They were faster. They were stronger. They had more firepower in a single ship than the entire human fleet combined. "How long until they catch us?" Chen asked. Her navigation officer, a young man named David Park, ran the calculations. His face went pale. "At current speeds, 12 hours, maybe less." 12 hours. That was all the time humanity had left. But Chen had not survived 3 days of desperate fighting to give up now. She had watched her home burn. She had seen billions of her people die. She had lost her family, her friends, everyone she had ever loved. All she had left was this ship and the 30,000 souls depending on her. She would not let them die. "Park," she said, "what is the maximum sustainable speed of our slowest ship?" Park checked. "The cargo hauler persistence, ma'am. She can maintain 0.75 light speed for about 2 years before her engines fail." "And the Veloxi fleet?" "They can do 0.9 light speed, maybe higher in short bursts." Chen did the math in her head. The Veloxi were faster, but not by much. If the humans could find a way to maintain their speed while the Veloxi had to slow down. "What about fuel?" she asked. "How do the Veloxi refuel?" Park looked confused. "I don't know, ma'am. Our intelligence on their fleet is limited." "Find out. Look through everything we have. Every battle report, every sensor reading, every intercepted communication. I need to know how they power their ships." While Park worked, Chen studied the star charts. Space was big, impossibly big, and the Veloxy fleet was far from home. They had traveled 200 light-years to reach Earth. That meant supply lines, that meant logistics, that meant weakness. 2 hours later, Park had an answer. "The Veloxy use a form of fusion power," he said. "They need to refuel every few months at special stations. Their nearest station is 60 light-years behind us. The next one in our direction of travel is over 100 light-years away." Chen smiled for the first time since the invasion began. "So they have to go back to refuel, or go forward to a station they might not reach." "Yes, ma'am, but we have the same problem. We need fuel too." "We need fuel," Chen agreed. "But we can get it anywhere. We can mine asteroids. We can scoop hydrogen from gas giants. We can build refineries on the move. Our ships are flexible. Theirs are not." She looked at the display again. The Veloxy were still coming, still confident, still certain of victory. They did not know what they were getting into. "Set course for the Kepler system," Chen ordered. "It's 30 light-years away. There's a gas giant there where we can refuel, and send a message to all ships in the fleet." "What message, ma'am?" Chen's eyes were hard. "Tell them that Earth is gone. Tell them that we are all that remains of humanity. Tell them that the enemy thinks this chase will be over in hours. Tell them they are wrong. We are going to run. We are going to survive. And one day when they are tired and weak and far from home, we are going to turn around and fight. We are going to make them pay for what they did to our world." The message went out, and across the fleet in damaged warships and crowded civilian vessels, 30,000 humans heard their commander's words. They were beaten. They were broken. They had lost everything. But they were not dead yet. The chase began. Admiral Crix expected to catch the humans within a day. When that day passed and the human fleet was still ahead of them, he was annoyed. When a week passed, he was frustrated. When a month passed, he was beginning to worry. The humans should not have been able to maintain their speed. Their ships were inferior. Their technology was primitive. They should have broken down, run out of fuel, or simply given up. But they kept running. "How is this possible?" Crix demanded at a command meeting. "Our ships are faster, our crews are better. Why can we not catch them?" Threx had the answer, and he did not like it. "The humans are efficient, Admiral. They waste nothing. They repair their ships while moving. They share fuel between vessels. They have even built small refineries aboard their cargo ships to process raw materials into fuel." "That is impossible. No species can maintain a fleet on the move like that." "The humans can, sir. They are persistent." Crix did not understand. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen a species that refused to accept defeat. When the Veloxy came, civilizations surrendered or died. They did not run for months across the emptiness of space. But the humans ran. And the Veloxy chased. The first year of the chase passed slowly. The human fleet jumped from system to system, always staying ahead of their pursuers. They stopped at gas giants to refuel. They mined asteroids for metals and minerals. They even established tiny, temporary bases where their people could stretch their legs and breathe fresh air for a few days before the Veloxy caught up and they had to run again. It was a hard life. People lived in cramped quarters. Food was rationed. Water was recycled until it tasted like metal. Children grew up never knowing what it was like to walk on solid ground under an open sky. But they survived. Commander Chen aged 10 years in that first year of running. Her hair turned gray. Lines appeared on her face. She slept 4 hours a night and worked the other 20. She learned the name of every ship in her fleet, every captain, every chief engineer. She knew which vessels needed repairs and which crews needed rest. She held the fleet together through sheer force of will. And she planned. Every night when the rest of the fleet slept, Chen studied the Veloxy. She analyzed their tactics. She mapped their supply lines. She learned their weaknesses, and she waited for her moment. The humans were running, yes, but they were not running blindly. They were leading their enemy on a path of Chen's choosing. Every system they visited, every route they took was part of a larger strategy. The Veloxi thought they were the hunters. They did not realize that slowly they were becoming the prey. At the end of the first year, the Veloxi fleet had lost 3 ships to mechanical failure. Their crews were exhausted. Their supplies were running low, and they were very, very far from home. But Admiral Crix refused to give up. He had conquered 47 worlds. He would not be defeated by a handful of fleeing primitives. The chase continued. 2 years into the chase, the situation aboard the Veloxi flagship had changed. The polished corridors were now worn. The crew quarters were crowded with soldiers who had expected a quick victory, not an endless pursuit. The victory celebrations that should have happened years ago were forgotten. All that remained was the chase. Admiral Crix stood before his officers. He looked tired. His 4 eyes had lost their shine. His scales, once bright with health, were now dull and dry. "Report," he said. Threx stepped forward. "We have lost 12 ships, Admiral, 5 to mechanical failure, 4 to crew illness, 3 to desertion." Desertion? Yes, sir. 3 captains decided that this chase was not worth dying for. They turned their ships around and headed home. Crix's claws tightened. Desertion was unheard of in the Veloxi fleet. Officers who abandoned their duty were executed, their families shamed, their names erased from history. But he understood why it was happening. His officers were not cowards. They were simply exhausted. "What about the humans?" he asked. "Still running, sir. They lost a ship last month, an old freighter. The crew transferred to other vessels before it broke down. They stripped it for parts and left the hull floating in space." Threx paused. "We have been tracking them for 2 years. They have traveled nearly 60 light years, and they show no signs of stopping." "What do our analysts say about their capabilities?" "Sir, our analysts are confused. By all calculations, the human fleet should have collapsed months ago. Their ships are old. Their technology is limited. They do not have the resources for an extended chase. And yet they continue." "Yes, sir, they continue." Crix walked to the main display and studied the path of the chase. 60 light years. That was farther than the Veloxi had ever pursued an enemy. They were in unexplored space now, far from supply lines and friendly territory. Every jump took them deeper into the unknown. And the humans kept running. "Why do they not surrender?" Crix wondered aloud. "They cannot win, they must know that. Why do they not simply stop and accept their fate?" No one had an answer. Aboard the Hope, Commander Chen had her own problems. 2 years of running had taken a toll on her fleet. They had lost 7 ships to various failures. The remaining vessels were held together with patches and prayers. Her people were tired. Morale was low. Some had started to question whether this endless chase was worth it. But Chen had a plan. She stood in the Hope's command center, surrounded by her senior officers. On the display before them was a map of the region ahead. Stars and planets and asteroid belts, all meticulously catalogued over 2 years of desperate flight. "We have been running for 2 years, Chen said. "I know it has been hard. I know many of you have wondered if we will ever stop. I am here to tell you that the time for running is almost over." Her officers exchanged glances. They had heard speeches like this before, promises of hope that never came true. But Chen was not finished. "Look at this," she pointed to the display. "This is our current position. This is the Veloxi fleet 3 days behind us. And this," she highlighted a region of space about 20 light years ahead. "This is where we are going to stop running and start fighting." The region she indicated was unremarkable. A few small stars, some rocky planets, an asteroid belt, nothing special. "What's there?" asked Captain Morrison, commander of the warship Defiance. "Nothing," Chen admitted. "That's the point. Nothing for us, but nothing for them either. No fuel, no supplies, no station, just empty space and rocks, she smiled. We have spent 2 years learning how to survive on nothing. We have built refineries. We have learned to mine asteroids. We can live off the land, but the Veloxi cannot. Their ships need specialized fuel. Their crews need specific foods. Their fleet is designed for quick conquests, not long chases. She zoomed in on the map. By the time they reach this point, they will be desperate, low on fuel, low on food, ships breaking down, crews mutinous, and we will be waiting for them. You want to ambush them? Morrison asked. I want to hunt them. There's a difference. An ambush is a quick attack. What I'm planning will take months, maybe years. We're going to harry them, hit and run attacks, take out their weakest ships, destroy their fuel reserves, make them bleed. And then when they're too weak to fight back, we're going to destroy them. The room was silent. It was a bold plan, maybe impossible. But after 2 years of running, the idea of fighting back was intoxicating. Can we do it? Someone asked. Chen met their eyes. We've already done the hard part. We survived. We stayed alive when everyone expected us to die. The Veloxi thought this chase would be over in hours. It has been 2 years. 2 years of running and we're still here. They're tired. They're frustrated. They're far from home with no way back. All we have to do is push a little harder and they will break. She straightened. I'm not asking you to win a battle. I'm asking you to win a war. It will take time. It will take sacrifice. Some of us will not survive, but at the end of it, humanity will be free. Free of the Veloxi, free of fear, free to rebuild. One by one, her officers nodded. They had followed her for 2 years through the darkness of space. They would follow her into battle. The chase was about to become a hunt. Over the next 6 months, the human fleet prepared. They trained crews in combat tactics. They modified civilian ships to carry weapons. They built hidden supply caches on asteroids and small moons along their planned route. And they continued to run, always staying ahead of the Veloxi, always leading them deeper into unknown space. Admiral Crix watched his fleet slowly fall apart. Morale was gone. Half his ships were running on minimal crews because so many officers were sick or injured. Fuel was critically low, and the humans were still running. He had sent messages home requesting reinforcements. The response had been disappointing. The Dominion had other concerns, other wars to fight, other species to conquer. A handful of fleeing humans was not a priority. Crix was on his own. Admiral, Threx said one day, interrupting his dark thoughts. Long-range sensors have detected something. What? The human fleet has stopped. They are in a system about 4 light days ahead. They appear to be waiting. Crix felt a chill run down his spine. In 3 years of chase, the humans had never stopped, never waited. Why would they stop now? Unless it was a trap. Full alert, he ordered. All ships prepare for combat. His remaining fleet, 83 ships from the original 120, moved forward cautiously. They entered the system with weapons ready, expecting an ambush at any moment. But there was no ambush, just the human fleet, 40 ships clustered around a small rocky planet. They were not running, they were not hiding, they were just there. And then Commander Chen's voice came over the communication channel. Admiral Crix, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Fleet. You have been chasing us for 3 years. You have lost ships. You have lost crews. You are far from home with no way to resupply. This chase is over. Crix laughed. Over? We still outnumber you 2 to 1. Our ships are more powerful. You cannot defeat us in battle. I'm not going to defeat you in battle, Chen replied. I'm going to defeat you in time. Look at your fleet, Admiral. Look at your ships. How long until they break down? How long until your crews mutiny? How long until you run out of fuel and food and hope? I can wait. My people have learned patience. We have learned to survive on nothing. Can your people say the same? The communication cut off. Crix stared at the display. The human fleet was not attacking. They were not running. They were just sitting there, daring him to make a move. He thought about his options. He could attack, but a battle would cost him ships he could not replace. He could retreat, but that would mean admitting defeat. He could wait, but every day his fleet grew weaker while the humans grew stronger. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Crix did not know what to do. The hunt had begun. 3 years and 4 months since the fall of Earth. The chase had become something else, something the Veloxi had no word for, something that lived in the nightmares of their crews and whispered of defeat. Admiral Crix's fleet had been reduced to 61 ships. Some had broken down beyond repair. Some had been lost in small skirmishes with the humans. Some had simply disappeared, their captains choosing to run rather than continue this endless pursuit. The humans called their new strategy the slow kill. It was not a battle. It was a death by 1,000 cuts. They would appear at the edge of the Veloxi formation. 2 or 3 small ships. They would fire a few shots, disable a sensor array or damage an engine, and then vanish into the asteroid fields and dust clouds that seemed to be everywhere in this region of space. The Veloxi would give chase, but the humans always escaped. Their ships were smaller, more maneuverable. Their crews knew these asteroid fields intimately, having mapped them during their long flight. Every rock was a potential hiding spot. Every dust cloud was cover. And then, while the Veloxi were searching for the attackers, another group of human ships would strike from a different direction. It was maddening. The Veloxi could not rest. They could not repair. They could not even think. Every moment brought a new attack, a new alarm, a new crisis. Their crews were exhausted. Their officers were making mistakes. Their ships were falling apart. On the bridge of the Eternal Victory, Crix watched another failed pursuit end with another lost ship. A cruiser named the Conqueror had chased 3 human vessels into an asteroid field. The humans had led them into a narrow canyon between 2 massive rocks. When the cruiser followed, it found the canyon was a dead end. The humans turned, fired everything they had, and escaped through a gap too small for the larger Veloxi ship. The Conqueror, damaged and trapped, had been destroyed when its reactor went critical. 300 Veloxi warriors, gone for nothing. "How many does that make?" Crix asked quietly. Threx checked his records. 59 ships lost since the chase began, more than 6,000 casualties. "We have 61 ships remaining, but only 42 are fully operational. The rest are damaged or undermanned." "And the humans?" "They have lost 18 ships. Their fleet stands at 32 vessels, but..." "But what?" Threx hesitated. "Sir, our analysts have noticed something strange. The human fleet has more ships than it started with." Crix turned. "What?" "When the chase began, they had 42 ships. They have lost 18. They should have 24, but they have 32. They are building new ships, sir, from the wreckage of ours, from asteroids, from anything they can find. They have mobile shipyards aboard their larger vessels. They are growing." Growing, the word hit Crix like a physical blow. His fleet was shrinking. The human fleet was growing. Every day the balance shifted further against him. "This is impossible," he said. "They are primitives. They cannot match our technology." "They are not matching it, sir. They are adapting. Their new ships are not as powerful as ours. They are smaller, simpler, easier to build and repair, but there are more of them every day. And their crews are," he searched for the right word, "motivated." Crix understood what he meant. His crews were tired, scared, far from home. They had signed up for a quick victory, not a 3-year nightmare. Many had lost friends. Some had lost hope. They fought because they were ordered to, not because they believed in the cause. The humans fought because they had nothing left to lose. In her command center on the Hope, Chen studied the latest battle reports. Another successful raid, another damaged Veloxi ship, another small step toward victory. Her fleet had changed in the 3 years of running and fighting. The desperate civilians who had fled Earth were now hardened warriors. Children who had never known their home planet trained in the ship's simulators, dreaming of the day they would fly into battle. Engineers who had built peaceful colony ships now designed weapons of war. And they were winning. "Commander," said Park, who had risen from navigation officer to Chen's second in command. "Long-range scouts report that the Veloxy fleet is regrouping near the gas giant in the next system. They appear to be attempting repairs." "How many ships are damaged?" "At least half of their remaining fleet, ma'am. They've been running their ships hard trying to catch us. The wear is showing." Chen nodded. "What about their fuel situation?" "Critical. They have maybe 2 months of operations left before they're dead in space. There's no fuel source within their range that they know of." "But there is one they don't know of." Park smiled. "Yes, ma'am. The hidden depot we established 8 months ago. It's on their likely escape route if they decide to retreat." The depot was part of Chen's long-term strategy. She had established dozens of hidden supply caches throughout the region, enough to keep her fleet running for years. But she had also identified the routes the Veloxy would have to take if they tried to retreat toward their territory. Those routes were now traps, carefully prepared over months of planning. "Send word to the ambush teams," Chen ordered. "If the Veloxy try to retreat, I want them stopped. No one goes home until this is finished." "Yes, ma'am." Chen stood and walked to the observation window. Outside, the stars burned cold and eternal. Somewhere out there was Earth, or what was left of it. She had not thought about her home planet in years. There was no point. Earth was gone. The people she had loved were dead. All that remained was the fleet and the mission. Survive, fight, win. But lately she had begun to think about what would come after, if they won, when they won. What would humanity do then? They could not go back to Earth. The Veloxy had destroyed it. They would have to find a new home, build a new civilization, start over. It would be the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced. But after surviving 3 years of chase across the galaxy, after learning to fight and win against an enemy that should have destroyed them, Chen believed her people could do anything. The attack on the Veloxy repair operations began 2 days later. It was the largest engagement since the chase began. 20 human ships against 40 Veloxy in a chaotic battle among the moons of a gas giant. The Veloxy fought hard. They still had superior firepower and technology, but their ships were damaged, their crews exhausted. The humans were fresh, motivated, and fighting with nothing to lose. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, 14 Veloxy ships had been destroyed. The rest scattered, breaking formation for the first time since the chase began. Admiral Crix watched from his flagship as his fleet fell apart around him. Ships were running in every direction, pursued by human vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere. Communications were chaos. Officers were screaming conflicting orders. The proud Veloxy war machine had become a panicked mob. Admiral Threx said urgently, "We must withdraw, the fleet is breaking." Crix knew he was right, but withdrawal meant defeat. It meant admitting that these humans, these primitives, had beaten the might of the Veloxy Dominion. It meant his career was over, his honor destroyed. But the alternative was annihilation. "Signal all ships," Crix said, his voice hollow. "Full retreat, head for home territory by the fastest route." The order went out. The remaining Veloxy ships turned and ran. For the first time in 3,000 years of conquest, the Veloxy were fleeing from an enemy. And the humans followed. The retreat of the Veloxy fleet should have been the end. They were running toward home, toward safety, toward territory where they could repair and resupply. But Commander Chen had planned for this. The fastest route to Veloxy space passed through a series of systems that the humans had prepared over 2 years of careful work. Hidden weapons platforms, mining fields disguised as asteroid debris, fuel caches that had been poisoned or rigged to explode. The running Veloxy ran straight into them. Admiral Crix lost 7 more ships in the first 3 days of the retreat. Mines disabled their engines. Hidden weapons destroyed their shields. Ambushes waited at every jump point. The humans were everywhere. By the 4th day, his fleet of 61 ships had been reduced to 32. The Eternal Victory itself had taken damage, its hull scarred by human weapons, its engines running at half power. "This cannot be happening," Crix muttered, staring at the damage reports. "How did they know where we would go? How did they prepare all of this?" Threx had no answer, neither did anyone else. The truth was something the Veloxi would never understand. Humans did not think in terms of battles. They thought in terms of wars. While the Veloxi had been focused on catching the fleeing human fleet, Chen had been thinking ahead, planning for this moment, preparing the battlefield for a fight that was still years away. Persistence hunting, the humans called it. Their ancestors had done it on the plains of Earth, chasing prey for days until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. Now they were doing it on a galactic scale, chasing a technologically superior enemy across light years until it could run no more. And the Veloxi could run no more. On the 5th day of the retreat, 3 Veloxi captains did something unprecedented. They turned off their weapons, dropped their shields, and broadcast a message to the human fleet. Surrender. The ships were the horizon of glory, the eternal conquest, and the pride of the Dominion. Their captains were young officers who had joined the fleet expecting victory and found only death. They had watched their friends die. They had watched their fleet crumble. They had watched their admiral lead them deeper and deeper into disaster. They had had enough. The message reached Chen within hours. She read it carefully, then called a meeting of her senior officers. "They want to surrender," she said simply. 3 ships, about 200 Veloxi total. They say they will provide information on Veloxi fleet positions and codes in exchange for their lives. The room was silent. For 3 years the Veloxi had been monsters, destroyers of worlds, killers of billions. The idea of showing them mercy was difficult. "We should destroy them," said Captain Morrison. His ship, the Defiance, had been the most active in the fighting. His crew had lost friends. His own brother had died in a battle 6 months ago. "They destroyed our world. They don't deserve mercy." Other officers nodded in agreement. But Chen shook her head. "If we destroy them, we become what they are. We become destroyers, killers, monsters. Is that what we want? Is that the humanity we're trying to preserve?" "They killed billions of our people," Morrison insisted. "Yes, and accepting their surrender won't bring those people back, but it might save the lives of our own crews. It might help us win this war faster, and it will prove that we're better than them, that we can be strong without being cruel." She looked around the room. "I didn't start this fight, the Veloxi did. They came to our world and tried to destroy us. They failed. We survived. We fought back. We're winning. But winning doesn't mean becoming them. It means being better." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Park spoke up. "What do we do with them? If we accept the surrender, we can't just let them go." "No," Chen agreed. "We can't. We'll take them prisoner, secure their ships, use the intelligence they provide, and when this war is over, we'll figure out what happens next." One by one, her officers nodded, some reluctantly, some with visible anger, but they accepted her decision. The 3 Veloxi ships were taken into human custody. Their crews were disarmed and confined. Their databases were searched for useful information. And for the first time, humans and Veloxi talked as equals. Admiral Crix learned of the surrender hours later. His reaction was fury unlike anything his crew had ever seen. He screamed. He threw objects. He demanded that the surrendering captains be hunted down and destroyed. But his orders were ignored. The remaining 29 ships in his fleet were barely functional. Their crews were terrified. They had watched the humans systematically destroy a fleet twice their size. They had no desire to fight any longer. Admiral Threx said carefully, perhaps we should consider alternatives. Surrender, Crix spat the word. Never, I will die before I surrender to primitives. Then perhaps we should request reinforcements, send word to the Dominion, explain the situation, ask for help. Crix laughed bitterly. I have sent 17 requests for reinforcement, 17. The Dominion has ignored everyone. They do not care about us, Threx. They have written us off. We are alone. He was right. The Veloxy Dominion had vast military resources, but they were spread thin across 47 conquered worlds. The war against humanity had been expected to be quick and easy. When it turned into a disaster, the Dominion had made a cold calculation. The cost of reinforcing Crix's fleet was higher than the benefit of catching a handful of fleeing humans. They had been abandoned. Crix sat heavily in his command chair. 3 years ago, he had been the hero of the Dominion, the conqueror of dozens of worlds. Now he was the commander of a beaten fleet, hunted across space by enemies he had underestimated. What do we do? Threx asked quietly. Crix did not answer. He had no answer. For the first time in his life, he was completely, utterly lost. The chase continued. Over the next 2 months, the Veloxy fleet was hunted like prey. Human ships appeared without warning, striking at weak points, disappearing before the Veloxy could respond. Supply ships were destroyed. Scouts were captured. Stragglers were picked off one by one. By the end of the first month, only 20 Veloxy ships remained. By the end of the second, only 12. Admiral Crix watched his fleet die. Every day brought new losses. Every night brought nightmares of human ships appearing from the darkness. He had stopped sleeping, stopped eating, stopped caring about anything except the impossible question of how to survive. His crew watched him fall apart. Threx, now more commander than second in command, did his best to hold things together, but even he was losing hope. The humans were relentless. They never stopped. They never rested. They just kept coming, wave after wave, until nothing was left. Sir, Threx said one morning, his voice carefully neutral, I have received a communication from the human fleet. Crix looked up. His eyes were hollow. His scales were falling out. He looked like a ghost of the commander who had led the invasion of Earth. What do they want? They want to talk. Commander Chen has requested a meeting, face to face, just the two of you. A meeting? Crix almost laughed. What was there to talk about? His fleet was destroyed. His career was over. His life was effectively finished. What could the human commander possibly want to say to him? But curiosity got the better of him. Where? A neutral location. A small moon in the next system. They suggest tomorrow at midday local time. Crix thought for a long moment. It was probably a trap. The humans were cunning. They had proven that many times. But what did he have to lose? His fleet was dying. His people were dying. One more dead Veloxy admiral would not make a difference. Very well, he said. Tell them I accept. The meeting took place on a barren moon with no atmosphere. Crix arrived in a shuttle with Threx and 2 guards. Chen arrived with Park and 2 of her own people. They met in a habitat dome that had been set up for the occasion, a neutral space where neither side had an advantage. Chen was smaller than Crix had expected. Humans were small creatures compared to Veloxy, but she seemed even smaller in person. Her hair was white, her face lined with age and stress. Her eyes, though, were sharp and clear. Admiral Crix, she said, thank you for coming. You wanted to talk, Crix replied. Talk. Chen gestured to a table that had been set up in the center of the dome. Please sit. We have much to discuss. They sat across from each other. Their guards watched nervously. The tension was thick enough to taste. Why did you want this meeting? Crix asked. To offer you a choice, Chen said simply. Your fleet is finished. You have 12 ships left. Most are damaged. Your crews are exhausted. You cannot win. You cannot escape. But you can choose how this ends. Choose. Option 1. You continue to fight. My fleet hunts you down. Your ships are destroyed. Your crews die. Your name becomes a symbol of Veloxy failure, the admiral who lost everything to a handful of primitive refugees. Crix's claws tightened, but he said nothing. Option 2. You surrender. Your ships stand down. Your crews are taken prisoner. They are treated fairly, fed, given medical care. When this war is finally over, they are returned to Veloxy space. And your name is remembered as the commander who saved his people when all was lost. You would let us go. Eventually, not immediately, but yes, this war will end someday. When it does, there will need to be peace. And peace requires people who are willing to accept it. Your crews, the ones who surrender, they could be the foundation of that peace. The Veloxy who learn to live with humans. The Veloxy who understand that conquest is not the only way. Crix stared at her. You destroyed my fleet. You killed thousands of my warriors. And now you want me to surrender so that one day we can be friends. No, Chen said. I don't want to be your friend. I want to stop killing. I want my people to stop dying. I want this war to end so that we can build something new. Humanity has been running and fighting for more than 4 years. We're tired. We want to rest. We want to find a new home and start over. She leaned forward. I know you hate me. I know you think I'm just a primitive who got lucky. But I'm also the woman who took a handful of damaged ships and surviving refugees and turned them into a fleet that destroyed yours. I did that because I had no choice. Because you came to my world and tried to kill my people. If you had left us alone, none of this would have happened. We are Veloxy, Crix said. Conquest is our nature. Maybe it was. Maybe it doesn't have to be. The universe is big. There's room for everyone. You could conquer every world in the galaxy and still not run out of space. But what would be the point? What would you gain? Power, resources, security. Security, Chen laughed. You thought you were secure when you invaded Earth. You thought we were weak, helpless, easy prey. How secure do you feel now? Crix had no answer. Chen stood. I'm not asking you to decide now. Go back to your ship. Think about it. Talk to your people. You have 48 hours. After that, if you haven't surrendered, we will finish this the hard way. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, Admiral. When I was young, before all of this, I was a teacher. I taught children about the universe, about the stars and planets and the possibility of other life. I dreamed of meeting alien species, of learning from them, of building a future together. You destroyed that dream when you attacked Earth. But dreams can be rebuilt. Think about that. She walked out of the dome, her guards following. Crix sat alone in the silence, thinking about choices. 48 hours passed. When the deadline came, the Eternal Victory broadcast a message to the human fleet. It was short and simple. We surrender. The war was over. In the years that followed, humanity settled on a world they called New Hope. It was a small planet in an obscure system, far from the Veloxy Dominion and far from the ruins of Earth. It was not a paradise, but it was home. The survivors of the chase, the 30,000 who had fled Earth and the thousands more who had been born during the long flight, built a new civilization from nothing. They built cities and farms and schools. They raised children who had never known war. They remembered the past but looked toward the future. Commander Chen lived to see the first generation of children born on New Hope. She retired from military service and became a teacher again, telling young students about the universe and the possibilities it held. She died peacefully in her sleep at the age of 92, surrounded by her adopted family. The Veloxy prisoners were eventually returned to their space, as Chen had promised. Many of them never recovered from the trauma of the chase, but some did. Some went home and told their people about the humans who had refused to die, who had chased a superior enemy across light years and won. Some even argued for peace, for a new relationship between humans and Veloxy. It took decades, but eventually a treaty was signed. The Veloxy Dominion recognized human sovereignty. Trade routes were established. Old enemies became, if not friends, at least neighbors who could exist without killing each other. And the story of the chase became legend. It was told in human schools and Veloxy academies. The impossible flight from Earth, the years of running, the slow, patient hunt, the final surrender. It became a symbol of human endurance, proof that even the mightiest empire could be defeated by people who simply refused to give up. The universe had underestimated human endurance. They had chased the Veloxy fleet for years, across dozens of light years, through countless battles. They had been outgunned, outmanned, and outmatched at every turn. And they had won. Because humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the fastest or the smartest or the most technologically advanced, but they were the most stubborn. They were the species that looked at impossible odds and said, "No, we will not accept this. We will fight. We will survive. We will win." And they did. In the end, that was what the universe never understood about humanity. They could be beaten. They could be broken. They could be driven to the edge of extinction. But they could never be made to give up. Never,